everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rhiannon. So today's video is going to be a little bit different from the videos that I usually do, but I'm going to be doing a little bit of how I take notes. So I primarily do take handwritten notes like on paper, but I also do a bit of a hybrid, so I do some things on my laptop. The university actually gave us access to the full range of Microsoft Office products, including OneNote, and in the past I used a lot of Google Drive, so typically if I do take digital notes, they are stored in the cloud somewhere. But I'm going to be showing you guys what I do for my digital notes and also for my handwritten notes. So for my handwritten notes, I use just these really cheap, really thin notebooks that are A4 sized. This one is a grid notebook. This one is a lined notebook. It doesn't really matter to me either way because I use these just for quick notes, for working out problems, just for doing things I don't necessarily really need to go back to, that can be messy, that don't have to be perfect. Because what I then do is I go in with a nicer notebook, a lined one this time, and I basically copy my notes from these in here. I write them over again, one just for recall, because apparently handwriting notes does help you remember things better, but just to also make sure they're much neater. I can cut out information that I wrote the first time that I don't think is useful, or I can add information. I don't use that many stationary items, but I just have a pencil and an eraser. This is for drawing any diagrams or for drawing different molecules, especially in chemistry, that I will then go over in pen just in case you make any mistakes. My main pens are the Muji gel ink ballpoint pen in the size 0.38. This is what I typically write in for everything, but I also have one in size 0.7. This is the one that I use for different headings and things like that. These are both in the shade black. And then I have these two Pilot Juice pens, also in the size 0.38. I typically prefer 0.38. And I have this one in a turquoise and this one in a darker navy blue. I just quite like blue. I typically use these for like diagrams or like certain points that I think really need to stand out, underlining, whatever, but I do keep my notes relatively simple, as I will show you guys. And let's see how I prepare for this. For my digital notes, I use Microsoft OneDrive. So my folder is titled OneDrive, University of Edinburgh, and then I've categorized it right now. I have the fall semester 2020, and when I go inside, I have my 3 different courses. So for example, with this class, I have these different writing submissions and things like that. Because I don't actually have to take notes for this class in terms of there are no lectures to watch, it's really just more about like different discussions and things that we do. So for example, for seminar 1, this is what it looks like. So these were the notes that I produced for the first seminar, and this is based off of reading from different sources and that I've just compiled into one document. Some of it's written in paragraph form, as you can see here, but some of it I've also just written in bullet points because it is a discussion and you don't have to actually talk about every single point. It just makes it a bit easier to read. So I do quite a bit of online notes. A lot of online reading is required. For biomed, what I do is we have 1 lecture a week and they're each on different topics, and we're then given questions. So you can see I have 1 question here, 1 question here, and 1 question down here, and then we write a response to it based off what is done in the lecture. So instead of doing handwritten notes, I also do online notes for biomed, just because you're given the questions beforehand. So I pull up the slides on one side and this document on the other side, and then I will edit it as I'm going along and as the professor is speaking. Then using physical Word documents, I also occasionally use the OneNotes app. So you can see for one of my classes, I just have different sections, and this first one is just the introduction, important information, and here I essentially summarize all the different key points that I need to remember just for the class, such as like how my grade will be given, what percentage of each assignment goes towards my grade, and then here's the general outline of the course that I've also included. We're like down here at the bottom, but this is really good for just keeping track of yourself and keeping track of due dates for the different assignments. So this is the second notebook that I've been using this semester. The current unit that we're on in chemistry is metabolism. So I've been trying a bunch of different methods of note-taking, but this particular one is for each slide, I just annotate different things that the professor is saying that is not already written. So it looks quite condensed, and this is around like a 35-minute lecture or so, because I'm just writing things that would help guide me in what is already written on the slides, and I'll show you some of the slides as the examples. But for example, in 2 units past, what I did was I was writing everything that the professor is saying. So you can see it looks really heavy, really condensed. I was drawing all the molecules, stuff that was on the slide, stuff that wasn't on the slide all together. And obviously like that is quite good, but it does really slow you down. So at the end of the day, it is, do you have the time to do? Because with this, I had to keep starting and stopping the lecture just so I could be able to write everything out. A method that I actually think is really great is being able to annotate the slides directly. So I find this is a bit of a combination between the 2 styles that I've been trying, where I am just annotating the information that the professor is saying that is not already written, but it is going directly on the slides itself. However, you can see this is a huge waste of paper. I did figure out how to print 4 slides on one side and then another 4 on the other side, but obviously this is a lot of paper, it's a lot of ink to be printing this out all the time. But for this unit, you can see where it's primarily images and diagrams. It was really useful to do that, and I do really like this method. If you have something like an iPad or a tablet, this is most likely like the best method for you to download the slides and annotate directly, but I don't have either of those. I really did like this method, but like I said, it's not the most practical for every single lecture, but I do think it's a really good way as well. You can see here's the different units that I've had in chemistry on Learn, and this last one is Introduction to Metabolism, and here we have all the lectures, so I have to watch lecture 2 and 3 today. Well, here are the slides for these notes that I did in lecture 1. You can see I was just annotating stuff that wasn't already written on the slides, so when I go back and rewrite my notes, I can just look at the slides and then add the different annotations when I'm writing them.
That bond. So that's what's going on there. So that is where our main source of glucose comes from. So having got that glucose, we can now go on and start looking at the actual processes.
So here is a side-by-side comparison of the notes that I do the first time around, my messy notes for chemistry, and then the new edited and rewritten notes on the right. You can definitely see, obviously my handwriting on the left's really messy, really quick, right is a lot more focused. I start off by writing the title at the very top of the page, including the course name, the title of the particular unit, which is in this case carbonyl groups, and the lecture number. For chemistry, we have 6 lectures per unit, so this is the last lecture of the group, and I use this 0.7 ink size for that, and then for the rest I use 0.38. You can see the first title here is enol and enolate reactivity, and then I use this type of right-handed arrow just to indicate new points. I will leave a space in between the new titles, so this is one section and then this is a new one, reactivity of enolates, once again the same types of arrows, and it continues down like that. Example here, I will use this more curly arrow underneath a right-handed arrow to indicate that this belongs to the same point as this, so this is more of a sub-point, these are main points. You can see I try to draw the molecules quite small here and then annotate them with labeling as well, so it does end up being quite tiny, but it's just much more condensed. I will also use color like I did here with the purple to circle or indicate different sections that are important. If I did it in black, it might end up being quite messy looking, particularly in reactivity reactions for chemistry where it involves atoms moving and changing, what I will do is I will use a different color pen. So here you can see that I'm using green for the hydrogen and indicating that the hydrogen moves from this position to this position, so you can tell that it's the same hydrogen atom as opposed to just different ones. You can see I'd continue with that here because it's really specific to the particular atom moving along.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.